Weird Al Yankovic. Now, I know that I usually talk about an artist's song or maybe even an album, but with Weird Al, that's really, really hard for me. When I listen to any of Al's songs, be it the famous Eat It song or the hidden song Spy Hard, I always smile. Every single time. I remember the first time hearing about the song Eat It when I was at school. Kids were talking about it. So I stuck my nose in and asked what was going on. After being told I was stupid and didn't know anything, they told me, in between their snickers, about this singer, Weird Al. That he must love food because, well, that's all Eat It was about. They also said he was probably going to get into huge trouble and that Michael Jackson was probably going to beat him up. They said nobody stole from the King of Pop. I was intrigued. A fight between Michael Jackson and some other guy? Cool. When I went home after school, I told my mom about the fight that was going to happen between this guy named Weird Al and Michael Jackson. She laughed and told me Al always got permission from the singers that he was making fun of. I was kind of disappointed. I mean, no fist fight? My mom went over to her huge collection of records and made her way down to the W section. She pulled out the album Weird Al Yankovic. I grabbed the record. The cover was hand-drawn in a Mad Magazine kind of style. My mom pointed out the track listings on the back. Another One Rides the Bus grabbed my attention because, well, I was a big Queen fan, even back then. So I asked her to play it. I replayed that record more times than I can remember. I went to and told the kids that I had heard other songs from Al. They didn't believe me. So I didn't fight it. I was happy knowing that I had heard something they hadn't. I eventually got into Weird Al in 3D. You know, the one with Eat It on it, when my mom's Columbia House Record Club order came in. It even had me asking my dad who Mr. Popeil was. I found it interesting that Al was able to write funny things about real people or events. As I got older, my music collection started to grow. I began to collect all of Weird Al's releases. I remember listening to the tape of Even Worse, you know, the one with Fat on it, on my Walkman on my way to school. His original songs were something special, too. I remember getting odd looks from strangers as I danced my way through the mall to Velvet Elvis. And I was always very surprised by his original songs. They were usually about something mundane that I could relate to. And they usually reminded me of some band or song. They weren't exactly copies or anything, just, well, similar. More of in the style of. Velvet Elvis feels like a Police song, if the Police were funny. I found myself even enjoying his songs a little bit more than the parodies. I mean, who really could have come up with the idea Stuck in a Closet with Vanna White? Back then, she was the hottest thing on TV. And remember, I was a young man back then. But the song had a playful innocence with it that all of Al's music has. You see, Al Yankovic never swears, never uses subtle sexual innuendos in his music. Any of his music. It's all catchy, funny, and somehow engaging. I never heard my friends' parents say anything bad about Weird Al. I mean, at that time, I was hiding Ice-T tapes from my folks. But Weird Al? Well, I left them out in the open. After a bit, I found myself owning all the tapes of Weird Al's music, up until the point that I got into CDs. And then, like most music collectors, I had to start my collection all over, to keep it current. Honestly, I never really cared about the quality of the original recordings, whether it be on record, tape, or CD, and, well, now, of course, MP3. Music is music to me. As long as I get to experience that music, I am happy. But, of course, that didn't stop me from restarting my Weird Al collection with, well, CDs. Around that time, I began hearing tales of a Weird Al movie. I thought my friends were simply babbling about a music video collection tape. I do recall seeing the Weird Al Yankovic video library, his greatest hits tape, at a Blockbuster at some point, so I thought it simply must be more of that. I never really cared for the music videos. I mean, his are great, but I've always been an audio music lover, not a visual music lover. But I was wrong. I found the music UHF at a video rental place. I'm sure the clerk was desperate to get me out of the store after he saw me vibrating with excitement. I watched that film so many times that I knew the songs, the jokes. Hell, I could almost recite the entire movie. Yes, I watched it that much. It was funny, wholesome, and well, kind of odd. But I think that's why I loved it. And I still own a copy today. Oddly, I didn't have the soundtrack. Actually, I didn't know it existed. It wasn't shelved with the other Weird Al tapes in the music store. It was sitting in the soundtrack section instead. I felt dumb knowing that I had almost missed it. The tape, and later the CD, has some classic songs on it. Parodies like Spam and the Beverly Hillbillies, and originals like the killer title song UHF. One thing that most Weird Al albums have are polkas. These are current popular songs all strung together with, well, a polka beat. They're not serious songs, but the lyrics are always sung accurately, just sung with Al's unique fun voice. The first one, Polka on 45, was on his Weird Al in 3D record. It had a smattering of songs from the 70s and 80s. Polka tracks that would appear later on would have time-specific songs included, usually from the year that the album was released. There were a couple of polkas that were a little different, though. Alapalooza had the song Bohemian Polka as its last track. It was a polka version of Bohemian Rhapsody. That song had just re-entered popular culture with it being featured in the Wayne's World movie. The other one was kind of a standard polka song, but instead of many bands, it only featured the Rolling Stones. The Hot Rocks Polka was on the UHF soundtrack, and honestly, it wasn't hurt at all by the fact that it was only based on one band's catalog. Sometime around then, I missed out on seeing Weird Al in the northern Ontario town of Sault Ste. Marie. I vaguely remember screwing up the date or something. I've heard some of his concerts since then, and boy do they look like they're a fun time. If I ever have the chance to do so again, I will certainly be there. Recently, well, another Weird Al movie came out. It was released exclusively on the Roku channel. It's called Weird, the Al Yankovic story. I know, it sounds like a VH1 documentary, but trust me, it is nowhere near that. It is a fun idea of how Weird Al came into being. It has a very, very dry humor everywhere within it. I mean, if I wasn't a big fan of Weird Al, I'd be inclined to think that some of this stuff is true. Until I got to the part where Michael Jackson steals Weird Al's song. Oh, and all that Madonna stuff. Absurdly hysterical. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely go watch it. There, of course, was also a soundtrack released with the movie. It has some of the usual tracks that you see on current film soundtrack releases, like instrumental music from important parts of the movie. But it has something new. Well, kind of. This movie featured many of Al's greatest hits. So Weird Al decided to re-record all of his songs in 2022. Not that I actually care that much, but they do sound a little bit better. I'm more impressed with the fact that he put the effort in, when he could have easily just used old masters. People probably wouldn't even have noticed. But Al Yankovic didn't think that way. He made his old songs new again. Oh, and there's one new song included as well. It's an original tune that feels very subtly sarcastic and funny. It claims that the movie is entirely accurate. It's a magnificent companion piece to a great weird movie. And it's included in the film as well. It plays as the credits are rolling. It should have been released in theaters, though. I think it would have been something to see everyone leaving the theater humming a Weird Al tune. Thanks for listening to another story that fell out of my head. I think it's pretty obvious that I'm a big Weird Al fan. Are you? Please let me know in the comments below. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time.